My name is Noel Bradley from the lovely town of Buncrana in the parish of Buncrana by the sea. I'm sure you all know it. I was asked to say something about the season of creation. It's harvest time. It's a month from the beginning of September to the 4th of October, the feast of St. Francis. The whole wide church, the Catholic Church, has kind of set this month aside to promote care of the earth, which is a big topic, as you know, with global warming and climate change and coronavirus and so on. It's a very serious issue. The Pope, 5 years ago, you may know or may not know, issued a letter. They call it an encyclical. It's just a letter to the worldwide church about the care of the earth. He called it Laudato, which means praise to you. It was from St. Francis, praise to you, O my Lord, Laudato si, O mio Signore. The hymn of St. Francis, that was the title of it. And the subtitle was Care of Our Common Home. Interesting, our common home. And in that, he talks about the problem about global warming, soil erosion, loss of biodiversity, consumerism, waste, and so on. And he talks about the interconnectedness of all things, that there's really a web of life, and that web of life has been torn, that we have a destructive attitude towards nature, and we're beginning to pay the price over the last 200 years since the Industrial Revolution. And it can't go on. It's not sustainable to keep extracting resources from the earth, producing stuff, consuming it rapidly, and then dumping it back into the earth again, and leaving, as what Pope Francis calls, a pile of filth. It's affecting not just the nature, it's affecting relationships. It's giving us what somebody called an epidemic of loneliness in the way we relate to one another. We've lost our connection with nature. He wants us to fall in love again, like St. Francis, with the natural beauty of the earth, and find that connection and find nourishment in nature and be enriched by it, and actually to find God within nature. So this season of this month has been set aside. In the last 5 years, they've been trying to, the bishops' conferences all over the world and the Central Vatican have been trying to get this message down to the grassroots of the parish and the priests in the parish. That's the main purpose of the season. So there's a website with a lot of resources for parishes that we would hope anyway that there's a small group in the diocese, we call ourselves Laudato Si group, that we're very concerned that for this month that a lot of this material would be used, the liturgical notes, the prayers, the suggestions, the homilies and so on, just to get people to begin to think about climate and the natural environment as part of their faith. Pope Francis says this is no longer an optional extra or a secondary concern for Christians. This is about loving your neighbour and saving the planet and saving ourselves. And that's an enormous challenge, because there's opposition, as you know, resistance to all this, because it's a challenge to capitalism, it's a challenge to big business and financiers, it's a challenge to all those things about hedge funds that we don't understand, financial markets. So there is resistance to this. But he asks us, look, we need to hear the cry of the poor, and we need to hear the cry of the earth. And that's not easy, because we're so detached from it, so detached, treating everything as things instead of as God's creatures. It's kind of, he says that if you fall in love with something, you won't destroy it, you won't do it any harm. You'll want to save it, and you won't love it or you won't save it unless in some way you consider it to be sacred, that in some way it comes from God. And in that sense, if we could get that contemplative dimension, which he encourages in the encyclical, that kind of contemplative attitude towards people and towards the trees and the rivers and the animals, and then also to start doing something, however small. It might be plastics, it might be insulation, it might be heating, it might be lighting, heat in your house, what you buy, what you waste and so on. It enters into every choice that we make from now on. So that's the hope. So this season I hope that maybe you'll do something and we'll promote this thing over the next number of years and try to reverse the trend, this great turning that's supposed to happen that all the parishes would be part of that great thing for the future and leave something for our children. I have 2 children, and I don't know what kind of a world they're going to get, or what kind of world their children are going to get if we keep destroying nature the way we have. Thank you.